We join the session already in progress.
Longer members in good standing. If a club has not filed its renewals, they are no longer in good standing. So, and this becomes a very important thing in the March timeframe if somebody is competing. So keep that in mind. You need to hit those targets also for the Distinguished Club Program, which I'll touch on in a minute. In December, there will be a mid-year TLI. We don't know yet whether it's going to be online or not, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. February and March is a membership building period called Tuck Up Toastmasters. You will note, by the way, each of these membership periods that are there for a reason. The Smedley Award is to build interest leading up to September renewals. Talk Up Toastmasters is leading up to the March renewals. February 28th, complete officer training round 2. March 31st is the renewals. That's a deadline. In April, there will be a district council. It's part of the district conference. The third membership building period is May and June, trying to get people to build membership towards the end of the Toastmaster year. The first meeting in May is when clubs must hold their elections, and I will come back to that later. And in June, there will be a TLI for elected officers. So those are just some key dates. Consult the district calendar on the district website. There's a lot more dates that executives should be aware of, but I'm just going through on highlights here right now. I want to talk briefly about how TI is put together. I find in many cases, Toastmasters don't know. They know about their club, but beyond the door of their club meeting, they really don't understand the organization. Everybody in Toastmasters is a volunteer, and there are a lot of people around the world. So there are thousands and thousands and thousands of members. They all must be in a Toastmaster club. You cannot be a Toastmaster without being in a club. Clubs are grouped into areas, typically 4 to 6. So, and that is a start of year. You may have new clubs form, etc., but at the start of the year, areas must contain between 4 and 6 clubs. Divisions, likewise, contain areas. And each of these has a lead officer. So there are area directors. Some of them are sitting in this meeting. Divisions have division directors. Divisions also must be between 4 and 6 areas when they do the alignment exercise. Districts, there are over 100 districts around the world. We are District 61, for example. Districts are grouped into regions. There are 14 regions around the world. And then there is headquarters. Headquarters is where, if you want to think about, is where the board of directors has their meetings, along with the senior executive officers, right up to the international president. There is also a small group of paid employees who look after things like running the website, all the logistics and everything else. There's about 60 of those at headquarters. So you are working at the club level, and I'm going to start with the president, and I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to go through information very quickly here. We have a half hour, but everything I am going to make reference to here can be found in the Club Leadership Handbook. It is available free from the Toastmaster website. It outlines all the roles and also has many other resource links for all of the officer positions. It's a very, very nicely designed book, far better than it used to be. The other one, particularly for the presidents, is the Distinguished Club Program and the Club Success Plan. So download both of those. As an executive team member, you need to know what's in those books, particularly the Club Handbook. So I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version here, but I want every one of you to go and get that book and look at it throughout the year. There's a lot of information. 9 times out of 10, when you have a question, you're going to find the answer in that book. Presidents, you are the leader of the team. You are the one that guides the club if you're going to aim for the Distinguished Club Program. You run the executive meetings. You are a base camp manager under Pathways. You hold a vote at district council meetings. You also hold a vote at the International Convention. You are responsible for appointing a club auditor. And you are also the primary link of the executive team to the area director. VP Education, you are also a base camp manager. You hold a vote at the district council. You coordinate the club schedule. You support the education program. You organize the club speech contests. You manage the mentor program. You also submit the educational awards, and the note here says there are 2 steps. One of them happens in Pathways. When a member in Pathways says, I have finished a level, you will get a notification, and you approve that in Pathways. But in order to also get that person recognized at TI, you must also go into Club Central on the Toastmaster website and submit the educational award on that website. And that's what will trigger the recognition back to the member, the letter to the member's boss, if that's what they wish to do, as well as your club credit under the Distinguished Club Program. VP Ed also is the primary person that must know Pathways. That is the education program. You are responsible for the education program. You need to know the Pathways program. Every executive should. VP membership should know it because you're the one that's selling the program to a guest. But VP Ed really needs to know this program. VP membership, you welcome guests. You recruit new members. You follow up with guests. And you explain, you talk, you convert, you cajole. You're trying to get them to join the club and give you a check. You may want to conduct a membership building contest. And you are the one that will process membership applications. When a guest says, I want to join, you are going to hold their hand through that form and complete the form and then give it to the treasurer. VP of Public Relations, your job is to get the message outside of the club. Get the word to people who aren't aware of Toastmasters. So you publicize the club. You need to be familiar with and know how to utilize social media. You are the one responsible for protecting the TI brand. You can only use the TI logos, etc. in certain circumstances. Make sure you are aware of how that's done. And you should think about doing a newsletter. Members like newsletters. It's a way of feeling they're part of the club. Or find someone that's good at doing it. Secretary. You maintain the meeting and club notes. If you, for example, have a vote at a club meeting to vote in a new member, the secretary is the one who keeps the minutes for that action. And then it files and becomes part of the club. The secretary also holds a vote at the International Convention. There are 2 votes for every club, president and secretary. Maintain the club archive, all the correct records and everything else. The secretary retains them. Please make sure that you have the club charter and the club bylaws. The club charter is particularly important. It is a special document. It comes out at every anniversary party, but it is the secretary that holds that charter. You are the one responsible for filing the results of the club election after the club has held that election, and you must do so as soon after the meeting as is feasible. Do not wait a month or 2 months after the election has been held. I'll come back to that in a little bit. The secretary also is a base camp manager. Okay. Treasurer. As the term implies, you oversee the accounts of the club. You collect dues and you pay the bills. You establish the budget. You maintain a monthly bank report, any actions associated with those reports, balancing, reconciliation, etc. You also manage the year-end signature changes. There are usually with banks require 2 of 3 signatures, so you need to have 3 signatures on record. On June 30th, the people in the current year no longer have authority to write a check for the club. So the newly elected officers must be arranged at the bank to have those signatures. The budget, by the way, is the authorization that you have to change the club's membership fees. If you have not got a successful vote from the members on the budget and you are proposing a membership change, you cannot change the membership fees. The members must vote on that budget and accept the budget before you're allowed to change it. And don't forget that the membership fee is in your club bylaws, so you need to change the bylaw as well. Sergeant at Arms, you maintain the club property. So if there is a closet in your meeting room, or you have a box that you carry back and forward, but the gavel, the lights, the signal cards, whatever the case may be, any folders, any name tags, if you have, for example, membership forms, guest kits, membership kits, they're all in the Sergeant at Arms kit. and you bring them out at the meeting. You set up the club meeting and you welcome guests and members. So all of that is there. And I also would encourage you to take a look at the resources that are available through Club Central on the TI website. The other things on the TI website, they have a store, they have all kinds of resources, they have sample forms and templates, and also the district has some level of information on its website as well. So know all of those and make use of them. I want to briefly review the Distinguished Club program in specifics, the changes that are occurring as a result of the fact that the legacy program of Toastmasters is now finished. There is no more competent communicator, competent leader, etc., and things like that. And it is no longer part of the Distinguished Club program. So the 6 educational goals, last year there were 12. 6 of the old, 6 of the new. This year there are only 6 of the new, and it's important to note 2 of those have changed. If you are familiar with this program, you get recognition. For example, the first one is 4 members complete a level 1, and they must be 4 different members. You cannot have 1 member submit 2 level 1s. Second goal is 2 level 2s. The third goal is 2 more level 2s. The fourth goal is 2 level 3s. 5 and 6 are the ones that changed. It used to be 5 was 1 level 4 and 6 was 1 level 5. There did not used to be any recognition for a distinguished Toastmaster. So they have changed that. And as you can see, 5 now is a level 4, 5, or a DTM. And then level 6 is 1 more, 4, 5, or DTM. Goal 7 and 8 focus on new members. They have not changed, but you are aiming for 4 new members and then 4 more new members. Goals 9 and 10. 9 relates to training officers. You are now sitting in and you are helping your club reach the first of the 2 requirements. Each club officer needs to attend training twice in the year. And if you do that, at least 4 officers, then you get goal 9. Goal 10 is administrative in that you must file your renewals on time and you must file the officer list after an election on time. Which, by the way, if you were in a club that did not file that officer selection or that officer list, unfortunately, you've blown goal 10. So actually, I should say the previous team blew goal 10. This is the one goal, by the way, people, that the current executive can affect next year's executive. If the current secretary does not file that list on time, then they jeopardize the goal of the next executive team that takes office on July 1st. So really remember this one and pay attention to it. To be recognized in this program, you must have at least 20 members at the end of the year, or if you started the year with less than 15 members, you must have a net growth of at least 5 new members. So if you were at 13, you must reach 18. You recognized, as is shown at the bottom of the screen, 5 or 6 goals distinguished, 7 or 8 goals select distinguished, 9 or 10 goals presidents distinguished. Keys to success. How are we doing on time? That timer has got way too much time on it, Michelle. Quality meetings.
Got about 25 minutes to go.
Thank you. Quality meetings is, this, by the way, as I said, is not necessarily my concoction. It largely comes from that handbook that I wanted you to really, really get to know. Quality meetings are defined as meetings that have variety, that have fun, that respect time, and where all of the speeches that are done are based on Toastmaster projects. What is not supposed to happen in a Toastmaster meeting is that people can just talk about anything and not have it targeted towards a Toastmasters project. Now, once in a blue moon, a club may be approached by a member that says, I have to do a career speech at work. I would love to have a chance to do a dry run and get feedback from the people here in the club. Consider that a very flattering request if the club is asked to do that. The odd time, there's nothing wrong with doing something like that. But by and large, when people do speeches, they're supposed to be based on a speech. And think about it, it's because the evaluators have to be able to evaluate that speech on some kind of criteria. Executives must work as a team. You need to know what each member does, follow their respective roles, but also be ready to cover for each other. I'll give you an example. I was in a club that changed their meeting night, and as a result, I could only make every second meeting. As VP membership, that's not good. But I arranged for someone in the meeting to cover my duties as VP membership at each meeting. So be ready to cover for each other so that the member experience and a guest experience remains solid. There is a document actually known as prospect to guest to member, and I really encourage people to know this because it describes how Toastmasters works. The prospect is the person that does not know about Toastmasters. VPPR is the one that's going to try and find that person and entice them to come to the club as a guest to see how a meeting goes. And hopefully they'll like it. That's the prospect. The moment they come to your door, they have become the guest. Now it's the VP membership that is responsible for that guest. Now, there could be other people that help. The Sergeant at Arms is doing greeting. They could welcome that guest. The VP of Education wants to know about that person once they have become a member, because the VP Education is responsible for that member's experience in the educational program. Do they know pathways? Are they getting experiences? Are they having challenges? So each of those vice presidents have a very important role to play in that process that I've called prospect to guest to member. It is important that each club defines how this process works. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I've said it, but you need to know who does what, so that when a prospect comes to the door, people don't gang up on that individual. There is a clean process. And when a guest decides they want to become a member, the VP membership is going to know, because the club has said, you're going to help them come fill out that form. Then you're going to walk them over to the treasurer, and the treasurer will collect the check and handle the financial side of the transaction, because the club has set it up that way. So whatever way you do it, you need to think this process through, so that the experience that the guest has until they become a member and as they continue to be a member is well managed by the executive team. So the treasurer, as I said, handles the financial side. The secretary is the one that stores the membership form once the person has become a member and their membership is paid. That's a club document, so you need to store that membership form. The Sergeant at Arms creates the new member's template, nameplate. So you can see how each member in the executive plays a role in how somebody goes from being a prospect to a guest to a member. It's not just one person. Everybody is working together. And the final point I make here is a typical one that I really want to get home to people. It is extremely important, and people tend to fight this one because it's not convenient. Do not use email as your first step of contact with a guest after the meeting. Once you have had a phone call with that person, there's nothing wrong with sending an email with additional information, but you cannot have an interactive discussion with that guest to find out what brought them to the club. What are they looking for the club? Then you can't shape your responses to that need if you're just doing everything by email. So it is important in the meeting that you get not just their email, but their phone number. And when I am VP membership, I almost don't let a person out of the room until I have their phone number, because I'm going to follow up with them on the phone. You also will have a much higher conversion rate if you do it that way. When I'm VP membership, I average about 50% conversion, so to speak. When a guest comes in, they become a member. And it's because you have that personal point of contact. Lastly, I want to touch on some important points, as it says, that are either overlooked, bypassed, or done incorrectly. And the first two are exceptionally important, and too many clubs don't do this right. They are, in fact, not optional. You are required to vote in new members to your club. This is a constitutional requirement. It is in your club constitution. You're required to do it. There are any number of reasons. It's described in the book. You can find other information, but it's in your constitution. You must vote in new members. The second one is club elections. You must hold your club election at the first meeting that you have in the month of May. You cannot have that later. And I'm going to give this a really simple example. And I did this when I was talking with the area directors. Either on a piece of paper in front of you, or if you want, throw it into the chat in the room. We have 185 clubs in this district. How many clubs do you think at the TLI in June had either not held their election or had not filed their new officer list with Toastmasters? Take a stab at it. I'll come back to it. But the point was, we had a lot of clubs that didn't. And because we did these things online, we had electronic registration. And as a point of interest, we went back and verified how many people were in the room they were supposed to according to their newly elected office. The numbers might surprise you. Tanya, can I just maybe tap on you? Do you see some numbers in the chat? You're muted.
We are chatless. People, put your numbers
My
in.
goodness.
How many people? There we go. We've got 23 as an option. I'm sure others are going to chime in here. 0, 90. Opposite ends of the board.
We'll keep on moving. Some of them might have written it on a piece of paper in front of them, not wanting to publicly guess.
There we go. 50.
71 clubs out of 185 had not held an election or had not filed an officer list. Not far off from 50%. And that is just unacceptable. This was in June. 1 month after every club had had at least one meeting in May. So understand that this is a requirement by your constitution. It is not an optional thing you can just do when you feel like having an election. Those are the two things that I see a lot of clubs don't do correctly. The next point is very important in my view also. Check with your members. In person, by the way, not email. You need to have that interactive discussion. Are they happy? Those members have given you their money. Do they feel they're getting the value for the money they gave you? It's an important question to ask, because they will not come to you and say, hey, I think I'm being ripped off. The first time you're going to know something is wrong is when you go for renewals and they vote with their feet and they're gone. You want to know a lot sooner, because if something isn't right, you want the chance to try and change and respond to what their needs are. You are accountable to your members. Report regularly to your members. Whatever that regular interval is up to you. For the treasurer, I really encourage that you put a financial report in front of the members 4 times a year. Let them know how the club is doing financially. Remember, you have their money. Let them know that things are going well. Keep in touch. I'm going to use a personal example here. We had a member in one of my clubs who has not been here for 3 months. If we hadn't kept in touch, we wouldn't know. But I did, and other members made a point of calling that individual and just, hey, he's a longtime member in the club. We said, how are things? We haven't seen you. Turns out that his wife was very, very poorly in health conditions. Yesterday, I got an email from that member that he had lost his wife. Tough email to get. But my point more on this one was, it's because we touched base with that individual that he felt he could send us that message and say, I've lost my wife. If that connection wasn't there, you would never know. And you wouldn't know why that person isn't at the meeting. This is so important on membership, that you really are in tune, and primarily VP membership, but any executive member can do this. The club I'm talking about, I was president. So to me, that was one way, although my favorite role is VP membership, but membership is important. Speech contests, VP Ed. These are extremely important for the members that want to compete. There are people who are in Toastmasters purely or largely for the purpose of competing. Know how to run a contest. I'm talking club contests here. Do the job right and know the rules. That is so important. There's nothing worse than going through a contest and it's just one cluster fudge. It really hurts the members when that happens. And it doesn't look good if you happen to have guests. Team point. Know how to agree amongst yourselves on how to handle differences of opinions and other conflicts within the team. You are 7 different people. Each of you have a different perspective. You are not all going to sit around the room, group hugs and sing kumbaya. You're going to have times where you have a challenge. You don't agree with somebody. If you wait until that moment is there, when the heat is on, you're not going to be able to deal with it. But if you have that discussion early on in your term and say, what if we don't agree on things? How do we go about it? Do the 2 people that seem to have the worst disagreement go and sort of have that discussion and then come back? Do we work on consensus? Do we work on unanimity? You need to know how you're going to do that before the problem arises. Another point is, what do you do with prospects that come to you via a web query? Free Toast Host, for example, has the ability where a person can go in and send a request, a contact request to the club. And it will be sent to 3 people, President, VP Ed, and VP Membership, as far as I know. The worst thing that you can do is have all 3 of those people jump on the bunny. Know who has the prime responsibility. I would recommend VP Membership. And then, if you don't see a response from that person in, let's say, a day or whatever you agree on, someone else can step in and say, hey, we saw your contact, whatever the case may be. Okay? And I want to conclude this little session with one highly important point. It's something that executive members never know or tend to forget or try to ignore. And all 3 of those are bad. You as an executive member have no authority for making club decisions on your own or as a team. You each only hold 1 vote in your club. And no one but the members are allowed to make club decisions on sort of management level, if you will, issues. The executive can decide if they need to go and buy pencils and everything else as long as the budget allows it. But if you, for example, want to change a meeting night, and the example that I'm going to give you, I've seen happen far too many times. The executive has been busy all year. They're tired. They're expecting that people aren't going to be around for vacations and everything during July and August. And they come to the club and they say, we're not going to meet through July and August. We're going to give everyone a break. We're going to resume in September. Wrong. You do not have that authority. You can propose to the members and then call a vote, as long as you have quorum, but you cannot make that decision. You cannot make the decision to accept a budget. You cannot make a decision on what the membership fees are going to be. That is a membership decision, and it must be held through a vote held at the club meeting. And that is an extremely important point, because you have no faster way to alienate your members than for them to feel that important decisions are just being made without them being having a chance for input. So that summer one is a classic, okay? There are other examples. The key point being, remember you only hold 1 vote in the club. You are leaders, and they will look to you as leaders. And if you have a suggestion, the odds are your leadership is going to be accepted, and they're going to support you. Membership dues might be the one area where you've got to talk it through because they may not like what's happening. But the point being, you only have 1 vote. Do not make the mistake of thinking that you have the authority to arbitrarily make decisions for the club. It's so important. So there is a very rapid walkthrough on sort of a holistic, if you will, or a collective view of how the executive needs to work. I'm not going to get into every one of the individual roles. I'm going to go back and point to that manual that I talked about. If you haven't downloaded it, please do. It's easy to read, in fact. There are a lot of good extra resources in that manual, but it is so important to give you the picture of how the whole executive team needs to work together. The last point that I have is make the connection, primarily presidents, but everyone, have that connection with your area director. You have a number of them in this room here today, okay? Mostly Division B and C, I think, but no, we got Division G. Salut, Hélène. Make that connection, because sometimes clubs struggle. and they just don't know, either because they don't have the experience. They're, like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, what was me? No, the sky is not going to fall down. But before you do, contact your area director and say, we're having this challenge. Got any ideas? Understanding that a lot of them are also new, but first of all, they get 4 extra training sessions every year at the district executive meetings. They have access to more experienced Toastmasters because they work with a division director. Those division directors work with a trio. One of the trio is sitting in this room, Tanya. Only one. Where did Amy go? Is she still here? She was here earlier.
She was here. Yeah, she had a different
Yeah.
meeting to run off to.
So 2 of the 3. And the wife of the other one, sorry, the husband, is here in the room too. So they are also experienced, okay? Make that connection and talk with them, because they can be a big resource. They will be coming to visit you, right? Area directors are required at least twice, and I hope they do more, but at least twice they need to visit your club because they sit down with you and go through a report. But when you have your contest, give them a shout. Put them to work. They're not going to like me after this one. Try and make them chief judge. All of that. It's a great year. I want to finish by saying thank you to each of you that is a club officer. Thank you for taking the time of showing the interest in your club. It's a wonderful opportunity. All of the club positions, and I have done all of them, they are wonderful, each in their own way. I have favorite positions, but they all work in different ways. And there is nothing better, for example, as a VP Ed. I'll tell you, for you VP Eds, I actually I was VP Ed for one of my clubs 4 years in a row. But the interesting thing was, there were reasons for it. It's not that I was just trying to hog the position, but the interesting thing was you can build a program and watch it start to work. And the club thrived. It did thrive already, but it thrived, partially because of something that you have done. VP membership, nothing more satisfying than welcoming a guest and seeing them say, yes, I want to join this club. And it might not happen on the first meeting. So all of these things are so important, and your club relies on you to have that synergy as an executive team. And I hope you have a little more knowledge now than you did 40, 35 or whatever minutes ago. That is sort of the formal part of it. I'm certainly open to some questions that people want. I'm going to encourage, if you have a question, rather than just automatically blast with emails or microphones, raise your hand in the participant window, and we'll see if we can answer a few questions. I don't know what our time limits are, Tanya. Maybe you could.
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay. I maybe have room for one question then. Paul.
Thank you very much. I was just wanting to find out sort of what the difference of now that we're meeting virtually, the differences of the role. So for my example, like I'm Sergeant at Arms, what would be the difference now that we're running meetings virtually? Because there's obviously no physical materials that are used.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to find out your thoughts on that.
That's a great question. Thank you. I think there are a number of ones, and I'm going to kind of relate. One of my clubs is Advanced Speakers. All right. And I'll throw a plug in. If you want to come and find out, let us know. It's a very strong club. We adapted surprisingly well to the online world. But the way it happens, the actual sequence of the club meeting really didn't change that much. We have a team evaluations. We have an advanced timer role, et cetera. That still happens. But individual roles certainly have. For example, as you said, the Sergeant at Arms. Yeah, you're not bringing... you're no longer bringing timing signals or anything else, but your club needs to decide, how are you going to do timing signals? I'll give you an example of what I do. Just give me a second here. I have a series of backgrounds that I use. So something like this, if I'm timer, I start off with this one, and when it's green, I put this one up. When it's yellow, I put this one up. And when it's red, I put this one up. And if they really go over time, I stick it in their face. But it works. So you look at different mechanisms and you adapt, but I don't need to leave that one up. Or maybe I do. I'm just about out of time anyway. VP membership is the other one I think that really needs to think this one through, because the one thing that you are missing Maybe somebody could think, what is the one most important thing in your club meeting right now that is missing, and comes back to some of the things I talked about.
Human
No.
contact.
Human contact, well, yes, but that's COVID. I was referring to a guest book.
Fair enough.
There is no guest book for people to sign. So how are you going to get the information from a guest and follow up with that person? One of the things that I've seen is that the VP membership during the course of the meeting will ask the guest to put their contact information in the chat. Okay? Make sure your Zoom meetings are configured so that the chat window cannot be saved. Because people may say things in chat, and if they think it's going to be saved and it might haunt them 2 years down the road, they might not feel open about chat. So the rooms can be configured such that you cannot save chat, but the VP membership can certainly get important information as the meeting is going on, whatever mechanism you want to look at. But that's another example of how are you going to follow up with people, you know? So there are different things that come up. Not being able to meet face-to-face, often VP Ed, certainly I did in our meetings, because I did not like taking meeting time to fill roles for the next meeting. I sent a grid around every meeting, and it was the entire year. People could sign up for any role at any time during the year, and you'd be surprised how effective that was. People could plan their year. But you don't have that physical mechanism in COVID. So I ended up converting, and we went to an online tool. And there are different ones. There's Easy Speak, there's Free Toast Host. They have sign up role sign up built in. These are little things that you're going to have to think about. So there's a couple of examples. Another one that we're facing, of course, right now is how do you get somebody's check? E-transfers are becoming quite normal. But how are you going to get e-transfers into your own club bank account? This year, because we got forced into it, it was ended up going into the treasurer's personal bank account, and then they would move it across with a check, etc. That's not good. All right. Under no conditions should a treasurer be put in the exposed position of having membership money in their own personal account. So this, my club, both clubs right now are in the process of setting up automated deposits with the bank, so that when somebody sends something to a specific email, which is a treasurer email, it will automatically go into the bank account. So little things like that you're going to need to think about, and you have to cope with, you know, like, how do we do that? Have I answered your question, Paul?
No, yeah, so that's great. And, you know, Tanya and Patricia were also suggesting some other things that you can do, like setting up the meeting room early, sharing the URL for the meeting, and sharing evaluations, also monitoring the chat. So, you know, so some good ideas for the virtual Sergeant at Arms.
Yeah, I host the meetings for advanced speakers. I have a Zoom account, so I host them. I make them available. If we need breakout rooms, etc., you know, I set that stuff up. So that's an important part as to how you set things up. And I always start the room a minimum of 15 minutes prior to the meeting, so that people can have like a little pre-toasties, if you will. And they can just kind of, hey, how are you, etc., because we meet on Saturdays. If there's any technical issues, they have the chance to kind of, hey, well, what do I do? We also have post-toasties. We just basically keep the room open after the formal meeting is finished, and you know, people can. Because our club, a big part of our club was post-toasties. We used to go across the street to a pub and go for brunch. We've lost that. So, you know, how do you make up for it? Well, you can still have that free-form discussion and everything afterwards, and it works. So know how you're going to do those things. And Zoom has a lot of possibilities. A lot of people haven't discovered the polling feature in Zoom. You can do some interesting things with that.
I did have another actually question. I don't know if you could answer this, but I saw, I was actually on Instagram where I saw that there was some kind of merger happening with Rotary Club. And I was wondering if you knew anything about that, or if that's something that's moving forward, or maybe it's just something in the US. I'm not quite
very
sure
quick
about
answer,
that.
Paul, because that's not what this meeting is about. There is an arrangement happening between Rotary and Toastmasters, not a merger. Not a merger in any way, shape, or form. IRS in the States would never allow it. But there is a sort of a cooperative thing happening there.
I can give a very, very, very high level on it.
Yeah, not at this
Toast-
meeting, Tanya.
Toastmasters is very good at public speaking. Rotary Club is very good at teaching us how to sell fundraising. So they teach us how to sell, we teach them how to talk.
Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate that.
Any other questions?
So there's a question that came up in the chat, which is an administration question. Are there any area directors here that are also trying to get credit for an officer role?
Well, if they did, they would have done a rename.
If you have not renamed yourself, please do so now. So that way we can make sure that you get the appropriate credit for your officer role. It would be unfortunate if you went through all this effort and then, you know, that way wasn't recorded. So
They could go visit. They could go visit themselves.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, I want to say a huge thank you to Frank for leading us through this session, but also a huge thank you for the team working behind the scenes. So we've heard from Ricky, who helped us all get labeled so that we could get the credit, Michelle, who set up the Zoom host and got everything ready and moved us into the rooms, and then Kiman and Rosa, who took our attendance for us today so that we can get that credit applied. So an amazing team to work with. So thank each and every one of you guys for helping us out today, and I hope you guys all got something out of it. And if not, like Frank said, reach out to your area directors. They're here to help you. There is going to be an educational team in place, effective starting in September, that will work with each role throughout the year. It'll be a 1-hour call once a month that will give you some educational tips to do your role better, to bring more value into your club. So hopefully you will take advantage of that. We do have a special club president club success plan one that was launched today. It was sent to the club presidents, but it really is the executive team that puts it in. So if you are a club president, feel free to share it with your executives. If you want to be an executive and be part of it, go to your club president, get the details, and take part of that session, which will be led next Wednesday and Thursday by Davender. So enjoy that, and hopefully we'll have lots of other educational content for you this year, but have yourself a wonderful night.
thank you.
And as long as
Thanks very much.
as long as Michelle doesn't kick me out, we're certainly open to some other questions, if you will. But Michelle, feel free to get the boot out anytime if you need to.
Yeah, well, I'll keep it open for a while.
I have to drop. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great night.
you very much. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
So Frank, there's a question on the chat of how should we deal with a new member form? Maybe you can answer that one.
Have an electric form. There are fillable forms available, even a bilingual one, as a matter of fact, available from the TI website. You can send that form to the guest by email. Ask them to fill it in, guide them through it if necessary. Especially in my case, like I said, as an advanced club, we are a dual membership club, so they have to make sure that they put their existing membership number in, so that TI doesn't create a new member. But for community clubs and corporate clubs that are not dual membership, don't worry about the member number, but you want to make sure that they have filled in. You fill in the club information at the very top of the form, and you can save the PDF with that information in it. So you have a version for your club, and when a member or a guest says, hey, I'd like to join, you can electronically send that form to them, ask them to send it back to you, and as soon as you have it, you vote them in. And at that point, once they're voted in, and not before, folks, at that point, you accept their money. Do not have the person put the money in before they're voted in, because if, God forbid, there should be a reason, and I can give you examples, that a club doesn't want to accept a member, then you certainly don't want to have accepted their money. So make sure the vote happens, and then have the member send their e-transfer to the treasurer email.
Just Tanya, I have a correction. I'm not the president of the club. I am surgeon at arms. This is Susie, and Parminder is the president. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Thanks for fixing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you going to give more lectures in the future, please? I need them.
Well, the district has a lot of good people to do this kind of thing. If there are particular things, let Tanya know what you're looking for. because she can look to try and make those things happen as well. The online environment is certainly very, very useful for this kind of a thing, even though it doesn't allow you to see facial reactions while you've got your screen shared, but there's still, ways. But there's good ways to reach out to people, and they don't, have to go drive somewhere to do it. I got an area director sitting in here that lives in Perth, able to join just by connecting, So it does offer possibilities. And think about that for your club meetings too. My advanced club, last meeting we had 7 people joined us from the Maritimes, Nova Scotia, because one guest went back and said, "Holy, you got to come and see this meeting." So we had a guest from Nepal. I'd like to see somebody beat that one. But there are different ways, that you can look at this, and clubs are starting to take note of that. But you also need to think about how do you want to lead that kind of environment. So just email Tanya, and I'm pretty sure she'll be happy to try and find solutions.
And I'm going to do you one better. I'll put my email address in the chat.
Thank you.
There you go.
So I think we're keeping Michelle away from beer time. Or has he left?
Nope.
Oh, there he is.
I'm still here. I'm still lurking here.
Thanks for everything, Michelle.
Sure, not a problem.
If there are no questions in, I love to see people and everything else, but I've got a beer calling me in the fridge as well. So
you go enjoy that. Well earned.
I hope we cross paths, but I really hope that each of you finds a way to really make the most of the opportunity that you have this year. Leading in a volunteer organization can be an amazing experience. So I hope that your clubs can do that. Build the energy in your club. And I'm going to give you a personal quick story here. The advanced club that I am in traditionally has been very, very strong in retaining its members. We've got a 95% retention rate. This past year, and I was president, we had a drop from 20 members to 10 for any number of reasons, none to do with the club program, because we checked with every one of them. It was just a combination of things, people moving away and things like that. It would have been very easy to go, "Oh, woe is me," and everything else. But the most effective way you have of building your membership is if your members are happy. And that's why I stress this idea about how do your members feel about your club. Because if they're happy, their tongues are going. And they will talk to whoever is willing to listen, and they're going to get them into that meeting. And you're going to find that club that I was talking about, Advanced Speakers, went back to 20 this year. And we have never before even successfully been able to finish goals 7 and 8. Like we traditionally struggle to get 4 new members, partially because we never really had to go crazy. But the year that we needed it, the members were there because they love the club. So if your members are happy, you will be amazed at what they can do for your club. And the executive team needs to tap into that. Really be aware of that. And if you've got it, bless your heart, because that's the thing that every club wants. Our educational program, we have 4 speaking slots, and by January, we can't book somebody in for a speaking slot because it's all filled. And that's an environment that a club can create. So find a way and really make it work. And this can be an amazing year. So with that, unless there's any last minute thing, I would suggest then we all go our ways. And I wish all of you a wonderful Toastmaster year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.